Something else in common between officers and prisoners is the total boredom of everyday life in jail. Each group has little to do except watch the other, who is watching back. No intensive training, no course, no matter how clever, can prepare prison officers for the daily lack of intensive work.
The prison officer's job is a very mundane, a very boring job and a very bad paid job. It's not like if you were working for General Motors Holdens, or even if you're a plumber and you dug a trench and you put a pipe down and you filled it in, you could see a finished product. You never see a finished product with a prisoner. You don't know, you can't do much for him. You're here purely a custodial officer to make sure that he stops in jail and make sure that he obeys the rules of the institution while he's there. You never see him when he goes out. You never see how he turns out. You never see if, once he goes to another jail, whether he's done any education courses or he's done a trade or he's learned to be a carpenter and can go out and make a new life. There's nothing like that in this job. This job is just a boring, mundane, low-paid job. But there is no finished product you can look at, and you can't go overnight and say, well, I done that today, or I built that motor car today, or I put a coat of paint, or I dug a trench. You can't go home and say that. All you can say is I was there, I stood on a post for 8 hours, and that's it.
The particular area that I work in, they are the worst female prisoners in the state. They're sent here for a reason, and it just can be a very stressful job, dealing with them day to day. One afternoon I was conducting the evening muster, which we do every afternoon, and I called out several prisoners' names. One prisoner in particular walked up to me and threw a cup of cold water in my face, and the prisoner that was walking alongside her spat on me as she walked past.
The number of assaults, I think last year at Long Bay alone, over a period of 12 months, was something in the region of 178. Now that is a disgraceful situation. It beats me how we even managed to keep, on that basis, that we were even to open the jails up, as to why prison officers even continue the job.
I was attending to an inmate who had attempted to cut his throat with a razor blade. Being a large chap, he only got through the skin and the fat. He didn't cause any major damage to any organs. During the process of cleaning his wound, he assaulted me, raining blows on the side of my head and on the throat. For this, he received 28 days concurrent, which means it works with the sentence that he's already doing. So in actual fact, he received nothing.
You see, there is no real deterrent for prisoners not to attack prison officers. If we go back to the old days of Grafton Jail, and I know that the Nagle Royal Commission condemned it roundly, but in those days things were very clear-cut in the prison. If you bashed a prison officer, or you bashed another prisoner, you went to Grafton, and consequently you thought twice about doing it.
The Royal Commission exposure of the systematic, almost ritual brutality of Grafton Jail ended its reign of terror as the ultimate punishment for prisoners who refuse to behave. To replace it, New South Wales prison authorities created Katingal, a science fiction nightmare Justice Nagle called an electronic zoo. Katingal showed great technical cleverness and a near total lack of human feeling. It automated the process of watching and controlling, and it further dehumanized the prison process.
Always in the background you had electronic humming noises and air conditioning. And that the place itself was very strange. You had no furniture as such in the cell that could be moved. Everything was concrete. Your bed was a concrete block with a 1-inch foam mattress on top of it. Any contact with the outside world or even the mainstream prison system was totally limited. All identity was stripped from a person. I mean, you can't get anything more impersonal than receiving a photostatic Christmas card, because a Christmas card was considered a security risk.
Public pressure closed Katingal 3 years after it opened. It had totally failed. But at Pentridge in Melbourne, a clone of Katingal still operates.
You can't feel fresh air. You can't hear things. It's like being in a fishbowl.
To its critics, and there are many of them, JICA JICA means security overkill, the result of ambitious technologies turned loose on the public purse.
It's a new breed. It's breeding people which it shouldn't be breeding. It was never designed to keep people down there on a long-term basis, but for some reason the hierarchy, the government, the administration, whoever, just are keeping people down there for 2-3 years.
Segregation of troublemakers is supposedly the aim of high security prisons. In theory, they're not intended as punishment. But who draws the line between discipline and punishment?
This unit is not a punishment unit, it is a segregation unit. A lot of them come in here, they're a hell of a lot of trouble to prison officers, and in here it brings them out of circulation. And when they're out of circulation for 3 months, well, that's 3 months worth of trouble that the prison officers can do without. In the unit here, we hold the trump cards. The officers here do everything for the prisoners. They are totally reliant on us, right down to even the shower. They do not even have control over the shower, the officers have control. The small thing like a toothbrush. You know, if a prisoner's going to give us cheek, then 10 minutes later turn around and say, can I have a toothbrush? Well, from my point, you can whistle Dixie.
You got to only look at a bloke and you know he's been in care. If he's done more than 2 years or 3, you've only got to look at him and you know that man's been there. That's what the system's breeding. This sort of person, not like the old villain, not like the old crim. These rat traps are building a whole new era of crims.
The sanctions of high security are self-destructive. Men who are sent here have nowhere else to go, are beyond threats of tighter discipline. All they have to lose are the last traces of respect for the rights of fellow human beings.
I was in H Division in Pentridge in 1969. While I was there were 38 other prisoners there. Since that time, 19 of those prisoners have either been charged with or convicted of at least one murder. Some of them multiple murders, up to 6. That type of system, where you take people, crush them totally, treat them as something less than human by forcing them to break rocks, not even allowed to look into another man's eyes as he speaks to him, has to look at the ground. You teach that person that in fact he is something less than. You release him on society and he reacts as something less than human. My experience has been that the attitude of people who've spent long periods in places like H Division, they're like a time bomb waiting to explode at the slightest thing. I've seen people that would take your life, whether you stole their motor car or you stole their cigarettes from them. They wouldn't be able to differentiate between the two, because once you do something to them, they react so angrily that there is no half measure. They will just kill.
Out of jail today, it seems a repetition over and over and over since 1942 when I first went to prison. But even prison warders, when you walk out the gate, I had it happen today, said, "See you soon, Clive," with a smile, half sneering, half friendly, but meaning it, and you know when they say it that it is correct what they're saying, so you can't object because you've done it so many years. This has happened to you, getting out, going back, and you just can't make it long enough to get on your feet. I deserve the punishment I got in the past, I do, but I do feel that I should be able to expect, like most men like me, that has never committed a crime of violence in his life or had anything to do with guns or drugs or weapons, that at least some assistance should be given. If not only to men like me, at least to some men coming out of prison, that's a chance of rehabilitating. And I think if that effort had been expended by the authorities a number of years ago, I wouldn't have developed into what I've developed into today.
This man is what is called a classic recidivist, a chronic criminal offender who has been in and out of jail since the age of 16. And he's out again to give the world another go. Everything he owns is in 2 garbage bags. And like every other Australian leaving prison, he receives 1 week's dole money, and it must last 3 weeks before he's entitled to more.
I received a cheque that afternoon for $95. I paid $60 for a room, $20 a night for 3 nights. It was only enough for 3 nights. That left me $35 for food, for fares, to push for a job, to buy cigarettes and toilet requisites and so on that I needed, and the newspapers to look for a job, the Herald and that. And after that, I was flat broke. I went to a hotel where I knew old acquaintances were, thinking I might be able to get a few dollars from them, but they're funny people. They're always ready to spend $5 or $6 on beer, but they never say here's $5 to get a feed. I'm not suggesting I've ever eaten dog or cat, but by God, I've been close down to and many a time I've eaten nothing for days, until I've cracked it from one of the old crowd, a hot checkbook or a hot bank card to get a few quid together. I've gone into restaurants and paid by a hot cheque, I've paid by a hot bank card, and that's not something you deserve a pat on the back. It's necessity to exist, and I'm doing it now, and I've got to go on doing it.